this weekend we got a new Scream movie in theaters. That means it's time to stop and rank every ghost... That's the wrong mask. Every Ghostface from the worst to the best. While I'm talking, be sure to join me down below in the comments section. Let me know who's your favorite Ghostface, who's your least favorite Ghostface, or if you're up for the challenge, your ranking of every single Ghostface. As I go into this, I'm ranking them somewhat on just how much do I like the reveal, how much do I enjoy the character, the motivation, kind of that full package is what I'm considering. And let's get started. In last place, Jessica Bowden from Scream 7. Now, a great Ghostface reveal pulls the movie together, makes you rethink everything you've seen up to this point in time. There's a sense of betrayal, and you feel like, the writer was smarter than me. That is the exact opposite of what happened with Jessica Bowden, where I felt like when they revealed who was behind everything and we got the motivation, the whole movie just kind of fell apart for me. This was kind of like the Iron Man 3 Mandarin twist, where you had something that was kind of exciting and you were into it, and then you get the reveal and it's like, oh, you subverted my expectations by giving me something substantially less interesting than what was already in place. And the thing that just ruined it for me is as soon as she started giving her speech and lecture, it was just word salad the motivation. Like, I'm hearing what she's saying, I know what these words mean, and I can kind of track along what they were trying to do with this, but it is just such utter nonsense. And there's such a thin connection between her motivation as someone that wants the real Sydney, not the stab character, and she's not a victim anymore, and therefore needs to, like, it's such a bizarro deal that has such a thin connection to the let's frame Stu that once again, it just feels like this disconnected movie that is completely and totally random what the motivation is and where it came from. So for me, this one just ended the movie on such a bad note that I had a bad taste in my mouth. 15, Marco Davis. This is one of the two henchmen goons in Scream 7 that isn't really given their own personal motivation, but they're kind of the extra person. Because they don't have their own motivation, they're just kind of along for the ride. They weren't quite as offensive to me. They're still awful. He's still in 15th place. There's no backstory here. There's nothing of intrigue or interest. It's just like, he didn't say things that overtly made me go, oh my goodness, and roll my eyes the way it did with Jessica Bowden's word salad speech. However, there's still just nothing here. He's still a terrible reveal, and it's like, oh yeah, that guy. Like, as I was watching it in the theater, my son turns to me and he goes, who's this guy again? I don't remember who this is. Exactly, just like a totally forgettable character, just along for the ride, and makes the movie feel completely hollow and empty when you figure out who's behind everything. 14, Carl Gibbs, coffee shop guy from Scream 7. Once again, no character here, completely random, and there's something, I like that reveal. That's the reason he's above the other two, but obviously there's nothing else here beyond that. That the idea that someone has been recruited that is just this random person that you saw, and just one glimpse of them, we lingered on them too long, so all right, something's gonna come of that. And then it turns out they're a Ghostface, but you know they're not the Ghostface. I like that little element to it. Other than that, there's nothing here. Like, no dialogue, literally just a creepy guy at a coffee shop like, well, there was something weird about that. Oh, there he is. That's it. 13, Ethan Landry from Scream 6. And generally speaking, wasn't really a big fan of the Scream 6 reveal. It felt like we were repeating the motivation from Scream 2, and it was just a little bit more far-fetched. Of the three members of the family that were Ghostface, I found Ethan to by far be the least interesting because he's just kind of there. He's not driving it like the dad. It doesn't have kind of the surprise factor of Quinn. He's just there. He's another one. And so for me, with a motivation scheme, a reveal at the end that didn't really work for me, especially with time, and he's the most forgettable. So for me, it just kind of ends up at the bottom. Next up, Roman Bridger from Scream 3, the only Ghostface to work alone. And One of the big problems with Scream 3 is that it was a movie where the script was kind of being passed from hand to hand, being reworked in editing room. And so to a certain extent, one of the reasons this one doesn't really work for me, because there's a bunch of like logical leaps in it that don't quite add up of how he was able to do everything that he did. Very likely because there was originally a second Ghostface in the movie. But even beyond that, I just really don't like the retconning of the original motivation of Billy and Stu going back to Maureen Prescott and what she was doing in Hollywood in decades past and having an additional child.
She shut me out in the cold forever. Her own son.
I just don't like any of that. It's trying to force in a gigantic plot twist and what's really behind it all, where I just don't think the pieces fit together. And then even beyond that, because Sidney and Roman didn't have scenes before the Ghostface reveal, and because he's like a movie producer, it just feels so disconnected that it feels random. It has such impact for Sidney that she has a brother and everything her mother was up to, but then it ends so abruptly that you don't get anything emotionally satisfying out of this huge revelation. So it just doesn't really come together and work for me as a motivation, and irritates me in a lot of ways because I don't like the retcon. Today's video is brought to you by Factor. It's the busy time of the year. YouTube is constantly keeping me busy. I've got 3 kids. They're all in clubs and activities. It's tough to find time to cook healthy, delicious meals. Factor makes healthy eating easy with fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs, so you eat well without the planning or the cooking. Factor has meals that match your goals and schedule, whether that's healthier eating, calorie management, or the one I love, more protein. They have quality, functional ingredients including lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole food ingredients, and healthy fats. Just got back from the gym. We've got queso fundido and ground beef and cauliflower rice, all with over 40 grams of protein. They have 100 rotating weekly meals to keep things fresh and delicious through winter. Options include high protein, calorie smart, Mediterranean diet, GLP-1 support, and ready to eat salads. And the one I'm excited about, the new Muscle Pro collection, which supports strength and recovery. Meals are delivered right to your front door, always fresh, never frozen, ready to eat in 2 minutes, no prep, no stress. I've been using Factor for years, and you should too. Head to factormeals.com/SeanChandler50 off and use code SeanChandler50 off to get 50% off and free breakfast for a year. Eat like a pro this month with Factor. New subscribers only, varies by plan, 1 free breakfast item per box for 1 year while subscription is active. Number 11, Amber Freeman from Scream 5. Now, she does get a very memorable death for herself.
Stop, I'm sorry, not doing it.
Fuck you.
She does play it so over the top that there is a good bit of fun in watching all of her insanity, running around screaming. She also is the only Oscar-winning Ghostface that we've ever had. So there are some things here that I really enjoy, but generally speaking, of our sidekick Ghostfaces, she's kind of the one I kind of forget about. Outside of her death and over-the-top nature of that, I kind of forget about her. We a lot of times have our main Ghostface and then the one that's kind of the henchman tag-along. She kind of falls into that category in this movie, and because there's like, in particular, they continue Richie's story in the next movie, he just so overshadows her. And then with his personal connections to Sam, there's a betrayal there. And Amber's just kind of the other character. Gets some cool moments, but she's the other character. Another thing that holds Amber back for me is I just do not like the fact that the 100-pound girl so easily killed Dewey because he got a phone call. Just that to me is a very problematic. Bringing us into the top 10, Detective Wayne Bailey of Scream 6, the patriarch of Richie's family, leading his band of psycho children to avenge his son. Now, in generally speaking, this motivation is just too similar to Scream 2's. We're just repeating the Mrs. Loomis bit once again, where you have the parent of the main person from the previous one is standing in a role, pretending to be something else, and then it turns out the ghost face behind all of this is too reminiscent. Now, I can buy into the idea of Wayne as a very vicious ghost face killer that doesn't care about movies, that's just out for cold-blooded revenge, and that you feel that throughout the movie. It's a much angrier, more cruel ghost face in a lot of ways that's just no nonsense. That is a nice change of pace that gives Scream 6 a distinct vibe in how Ghostface kills people in the film. But also, the reveal is when that movie started to come undone for me. That there's just too much, too contrived. I didn't buy into the idea that neither Sam or Gail had any idea what Richie's family members looked like. There's a amount of logic that, like, wait, the investigative journalist never looked into Richie's family, and Sam never knew anything about her psycho boyfriend's family. I don't buy it, and that kind of undoes all the ghost faces in this movie. Number 9, Quinn from Scream 6 of Richie's family. This is the one that I felt was the reveal was the most interesting, simply because they faked her death earlier in the movie, thus completely removing her from the suspect list. And of things to do with a ghost face where you literally kill off someone so that they can go off and be a ghost face whenever they need to in the background, I think that's a good idea. There's something to that works, that's kind of interesting, a really good misdirect. As for her, in generally speaking, once again, I have issues overall with the ghost face reveal with the family members and how contrived some of it was, but this is the one that I think was the most clever and interesting in the way that it was kind of. Jason Carvey, the guy that killed Samara Weaving in Scream 6. Now, generally speaking, as a character, there's not a whole lot here. His motivation is like, we're just trying to complete Richie's movie, like very simplistic, guy on the internet taking it too far. That side to it isn't, if it was just based off of that, he'd be several spots lower on the list, and, Quinn and the detective, Amber, would be ahead of him. The thing that I love about this one, while the character is very thin, and he should be, because it's a cold open, is the way that we get a kill in immediate Ghostface reveal. I think that was a great idea. And then we play that out, and a Ghostface gets killed by Ghostface. That's a great cold open. That's what I like. Doing something different, unexpected, that breaks the rules, lets you know you're in for something completely different with this movie. That, to me, is what I appreciated about this one, that kind of was able to bump him up to the top half of this list. The general concept of the reveal worked. The character, there's just not a ton there. There's not supposed to be. But also even the idea that he's friends with Tara. Like, he's walking the campus, making buddies with her. All of that stuff works for me. Then we have Mrs. Loomis from Scream 2. And this is classic revenge motivation. Her son was killed. She hates the Prescott family, so she's out for revenge.
My motive isn't as 90s as Mickey's. Mine is just good old-fashioned revenge.
And establishes that the Loomis family are a bunch of absolute lunatics. And there's something to that is a little bit of fun. She doesn't have a ton of screen time earlier in the movie, so she's just kind of the annoying other reporter, and we only kind of know her as that. So when you do kind of the reveal, it feels a little bit like the surprise where there's information we didn't have. There's no way you could have guessed that because we don't have the information that Sydney has in the movie. So that kind of always kind of bugged me a little bit about it. But there's that close personal connection, ties it back to the previous movie. So there's some things in there that are kind of interesting that make it fun. Number 6, Charlie Walker from Scream 4. Another one of our sidekick killers. But the thing that kind of makes him work, where some other ones weren't quite as interesting, is the dynamic that they specifically put in here of he's basically this very impressionable dude that just wants a girl's attention. So Kirby ignored him for years. Jill comes along, gives him attention, and all of a sudden he drifts in this other direction. You go, if Kirby had paid more attention to him earlier on, could we have avoided a bunch of the chaos that came along with this? And so he ends up lining up with Jill, who's completely just using him, but he's just so locked in that he goes along with it to the point that he gets himself killed by Jill. And even as you go through the part where him and Kirby start to have their little bit, and it seems like Kirby's trying to get him to make the move and everything like that, you can see that there's almost this sense of like sadness, is like he finally, the girl that he's wanted her attention all this time, finally is giving it to him.
I hear you like horror movies, Kirby, but do you like them as much as him?
He's getting that attention, but at a point in time where he has to kill her or try to kill her, and so just too late for him to get what he wants out of it. So I think that dynamic kind of works here. He's just a sidekick. He's not as flashy as some of the ones we'll get a little bit higher up on this list, but still really dug it. In fifth, Mickey from Scream 2. And this is one of our true psychos that while Mrs. Loomis is out for revenge, he just wants to be famous. He's inspired by what happened, this idea of what if movies cause violence. He wants to be the poster child for that.
I've got my whole defense planned out. I'm gonna blame the movies.
And so he's all in to team up with the lady out for revenge, to create carnage and get famous. And there's something about that that's fun. You see that copied in some of the later ones, or maybe iterated a little bit in some later ones. But Timothy Olyphant playing over-the-top movie lover that wants to join the narrative, I'm all for it. Number 4, Stu Macher, the original sidekick from the original film. And so much of what makes this one special is the idea of two killers was very inventive at the time. You're always assuming there's one killer. You're going through it, trying to figure out who the person is and kind of going through the list and marking people off like, oh, it can't be this person, can't be that person. And you get to the third act, and it turns out the reason that certain people were or Billy Loomis was crossed off the list is because there were two killers. And so they can be two places at once. And that was a really clever, innovative idea.
What's your motive? Billy's got one. The police are on their way. What are you going to tell them?
Peer pressure.
And our sidekick here is played by Matthew Lillard, and so many of his iconic lines in the third act were just improvises.
My mom and dad are gonna be so mad.
And there's all these little details of, as much as he's this over-the-top psycho, he's also still just a teenager, and he's like, oh man, my parents are gonna be mad at me when they find out what I did. Like, these little lines of dialogue, I'm feeling a little woozy here, feel like they add of course, humor to it, but a distinct personality to a character that has a history and is thinking beyond the moment. It's just so much fun, and it's all the Matthew Lillardisms of it that make the character work. Real quick, before I give you my top 3, remember to join me down below in the comment section. Let me know your favorite Ghostface, your least favorite Ghostface, and if you're up for the challenge, let's do the whole deal. Give me the full ranking. Check out my other Scream content somewhere around here. At different points in times, I have reviewed all the movies. Of course, I've ranked all the movies and done cold openings. So be sure to check all of that out, as well as my other horror rankings. I don't know. I've talked about a lot of movies. In third place, Richie from Scream 5. The best Ghostface is when you have the reveal. There's this sense of betrayal, as well as kind of pulling together everything that you've seen up to this point in time on a plot, character, and thematic level. And that's what Richie's character is able to do. Even as he has the moment where he has the reveal, he even says to Sam, it sucks that it's me, right? Like, we're doing the boyfriend again, but yeah, I know. And there's almost that you can feel the pain that there's a side to him that as much as he's all in on the murder and what he's doing, there's a bit of regret that, man, Sam's right here, and man, it's too bad it has to play out this way, but this is what we got to do to make the better version of him. Adding to that, it's a movie that's dealing with both legacy sequels as well as toxic fandom, and they're able to merge those two ideas pretty seamlessly together in a franchise where it makes sense to do that. And you can pull together a lot of what was going on in fandoms, what was going on in Hollywood, what movies were being released, pulling it together in this Richie character. So meta commentary, personal betrayal, and just Jack Quaid can play the psycho. He can be charming, like very safe feeling boyfriend, but also he can turn up those crazy sliders and get nuts too. Our runner-up, Jill from Scream 4. Now, I was mixed positive on Scream 4 for a very long time, and I feel like it's the Scream movie that for me has aged the best. Some of that goes back to the motivation of the Jill character and everything that kind of goes on there, the meta commentary I feel works better now than it did 15 years ago, where the idea of someone seeking fame, streaming their whole life on the internet, all that feels more relevant today in the modern era of social media than it did 15 years ago in the early era of social media, where that wasn't quite as true as it is now, where there's all these insane stories of people going to extreme lengths to try and become famous as an influencer, and catastrophic things have happened because of it. So Jill's motivation now plays better than it did back in the day. Adding to that, there's this sense of utter betrayal inside of it. There's a subversion of expectations that works really well, that the person that we think is going to be new Sydney is actually new Ghostface, while tying into everything else. So for me, this is one that with time, it's like, yes, we found something new that was actually ahead of the curve when they made the commentary, while tying into some of the best practices of Ghostfaces. But coming in at number 1, Billy Loomis. I'm the kind of person that always has strong biases towards the original, that kind of lay the foundation, create the template, and that's the case here too. But so much of it is that you have a series of plot points in here about Sydney's mother and the murder beforehand, and Cotton Weary, and then there's a boyfriend that shows up early on, clearly the early first suspect for everything going on, but we find a way to make it, clear his name so it's not him, misdirect really effectively towards other characters. And then when you get to the end of it, and you get his motivation, it ties back to everything with the mother beforehand, personal betrayal, pure insanity. It's all in there. And so it feels like the whole movie is pulled together as soon as you get the reveal. You get insights about what really happened with Cotton Weary and this murder that happened. Like, you understand all of it while having this really clever twist. There's multiple killers, and there's a way that you're able to fool us, trick us a little bit with everything kind of going on. Skeet Ulrich plays this psycho to perfection. And even like as you get to the end of it and he starts stabbing Stu, and you realize the power dynamic shifting as he's clearly trying to be overly dangerous towards this other person.
Don't you blame the movies! Movies don't create psychos! Movies make psychos more creative!
All the implications of what exactly might have been going on there, we never fully know, because Sydney gets the upper hand and kills both of them. But was he trying to kill Stu? And how much of it was just couldn't stop his bloodthirst? You don't know, but there's all these little nuanced details in the way it all plays out. Absolutely love it. The original Scream is my favorite horror movie of all time. So naturally, the original Ghostface is my favorite Ghostface of all time. So Billy Loomis comes in at number 1. Be sure to check out my other Scream videos somewhere around here. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.